Hey, good evening, everybody. Sammy Thunder here. Welcome back to the Four Collectors channel. I'm joined by John, the Mangini Collection, and Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Due to popular demand. I was told by Theo that the video, the first interview we did, or the first collaboration we did on this channel, was like one of the top 5 videos. So that's kind of cool. I think not only did I want to hear what you guys wanted to share, but
It was John.
but
It was Orlando.
I mean, the questions I was curious about, I guess, were shared among many others who wanted to kind of dive deep into your brains. And so I figured, we would just kind of pick up, maybe not so much, pick up where we left off a little bit, but also kind of dive into some other areas as well. Being that it's 2024, I know both of y'all are going to be at the National this year. And even though it's a little further away, I had some curiosities. I mean, everybody kind of strategizes their own way, but I'd like to know, because I didn't get a chance to walk around with you guys last year. I mean, we bumped into each other, but when you're walking around and you're going table to table, I mean, do you kind of remain patient and kind of set certain expectations for yourselves and wait till like the later in the show, or like third or fourth day, or are you jumping in immediately? I mean, what sort of goes through your mind when you first get there? Anybody could start.
I'll let Orlando go first. He's more of a veteran with the National. I've only been to 2.
Okay.
Sammy, John, I'm just the type of guy that really goes, I would guess, by the seat of my pants. I'll walk in there and I'll look at a table, and if I find a card that is just something that I hadn't seen in a while, that looks nice and stuff, I may just go right there without looking any further. If I find kind of a rare card that I hadn't seen in a while, or something that, something like that like what John usually gets, so it really, for me, it just, it depends. Maybe I'll wait till the last day. If it's a card that you could see every day and you see hundreds of them there at the show, that kind of stuff, I'll wait. You can wait till the end of the show and maybe you get some deals and stuff. But, it really depends on the actual card and what's on that dealer table. I mean, I've bought things that I never expected to buy just because, hey, there it is. I got to get it. If I don't get it, John's going to get it. And that happened to me at the show. I went to the Cuban card guy there, and I was looking at his table, and I didn't pull the trigger, and I come back, and John had bought the second year the
Orlando,
Eagle card.
I feel bad about that. I didn't know at the time till long after, but man, you should have pulled the trigger on that baby.
Exactly.
What were you thinking?
That's where you make mistakes, so you just can't wait. I figured, what, I'll come back and, I'll check it again. And when I came back, it was gone. But I did get the rookie card that the dealer also had there, But that's the kind of thing. It depends on the card. It depends. I don't go into the show with a list. I used to when I was a set collector and things like that. You went with a list of what are you going to get. And there are people that kind of say, okay, I've got the 64, whatever, let's say the rose. And, I'm going to go in order. Now I'm going to get the 65 rose. I'm going to look for that particular card. I'm not like that. I'm kind of just go in and look at the show. If I don't find anything, I'll walk the whole show. Before I do like a show video, I'll walk the whole show and I'll take a look at stuff to see if there's anything that I'm targeting. I might even tell the dealer, listen, I'm going to come back and do the video, but hold on to watch out. I want that card, or I'm interested in that card. So it just depends. Usually I'll walk the show. If I find something, I'll jump on it, something that I think I can get that's kind of rare. If not, I'll walk the show and take my time and be patient and just find a nice card, usually a raw card in nice condition. That's kind of what I'm looking for the most part.
Okay, yeah, so for me, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so where I am with my collecting is I always equate it to being like a free safety. It's like I have most of the sets, near sets from just about every set. So uh, I want to just take advantage of any opportunities that pop up. So I don't go in with any preconceived notion or any specific cards I'm looking for whatsoever. I really, like Orlando, seek out the ones you can't find anywhere else, because most of the cards at the National you can find at any time, and when you want them. And so when I'm going there, I'm looking for the things I can't find all the time. And I have the plan to not spend too much money right away, to look around. But at the last National, I blew that. I bought a card within the first 5 minutes of arrival. I found a Tim Keefe, Allen and Ginter in a 6 that I just couldn't pass up. And I had been wanting that card, and I just don't see that many of them. So I bought that. And Orlando's talking about the card I picked up, the Cuban card, Martin Dihigo. And that was one of those deals where I saw it, I asked the price, it was way lower than I was expecting, and I couldn't buy it fast enough. So I like to keep my options free for that, because if you spend all your money right away and then you stumble on that rare gem that you have to have, you're either digging back in for more money and that you didn't want to spend, or you don't have it to spend at all. So that's how I do it. I don't have a preconceived notion of which cards I'm going to buy.
Do you guys also find it that, you guys are veteran collectors. Y'all have been doing this for a long time. So someone like myself who kind of dived back in recently, and among some other content creators as well, do you find that a lot of guys are coming up to you saying, "Hey, would you mind just taking the time to, taking like 5-10 minutes? I have a card on this dealer that wants said price." And John, I've asked John and Orlando, I've asked you both for advice on cards online, not at shows, unfortunately, but hopefully that'll probably change. But do you find it that there are guys that come up to you and say, "Hey, I just need some help"?
I've found that a little bit, but it's more so that they come up and they're excited to show me what they got, and then I'm showing them what I got, because we're all kind of like that. Hey, check out what I got! Like, you're so excited when you find that gem or some card you've been looking for forever. But there's a little bit of that, where somebody will ask an opinion, or, "Hey, can you come over here and take a look at this card? What do you think of the price?" Especially raw cards, people are extra careful, want other opinions on it.
Orlando, what about you? Do you find that even at the National, I think that's that's a centralized spot for everybody, so everyone's there, and everybody knows. You've been in the business for a long time, so do you find that like other collectors are coming up to you asking for advice?
Yeah, like John, a lot of the collectors are anxious to show you what they got, and that's the best thing, to see what they got and how they went about negotiating and all that stuff. That's fun. But yeah, of course, there are a lot of collectors that are friends of mine that they'll ask me questions and things like that, before they buy it, or actually in the process of buying. Now, I'll give you a good example. This past weekend, I went to the show here in Fort Lauderdale, and Mike Hitman 23 was there with me, and he was looking at some cards there, and I was looking. It's a new vintage dealer was there, and I was looking at certain cards, and he likes certain. I know what he likes. He likes catcher cards with the background and stuff like that, and I went through and I found some of those. And I showed it to him, and then he was going through some cards from the same dealer. And he said, he showed me a card. Says, I hadn't seen this card. And it was from 1957, said it was a Mike Garcia, card number 300. And the guy wanted a couple bucks for it. And that card is a rare card from the 4th series. And it's a tough card to find. And it's really a tough card to find centered. So I gave him my opinion on that, and he scooped that card right away. So,
and Orlando even knows the card number.
Yeah. Well, I built that set back in the day, and I remember that card was very difficult to find centered. And that mid-series that also has the Brooks Robinson rookie and the Sandy Koufax card in the middle there, that's the toughest series in that 57 set. So, stuff like that, when somebody asks me certain things that I can help them with what I know, and of course I've had, in the National, I walked around with a lot of the guys there, you know, Drew for Clean Cheap Shots, Hammer 44, and a few of the guys that I walked with. And, you know, I saw what they were getting and what they were negotiating, and I kind of gave them my advice there. But most of the time, I'm by myself, shopping by myself at the show. So it's not like, you know, I can really give advice
Yeah,
to
Orlando
anybody.
disappears and you don't see him, and then he shows up with carts.
I forgot who.
So
it was.
one of the things I see even more so than people asking opinions on things, and this is awesome, is because there's so many of us and we all know what each other collects, and I'll do it to them and they'll do it to me. Is they'll be at a place and they'll be texting you or calling you, hey, you have to come to this booth. There's these cards I think you're gonna want. Or they'll take a picture and send it and say, hey, I found this. It's a great price. I know you've been looking for one. That kind of thing. And I'm doing that all the time with like Rick for vintage oddball cards, because something that I know he would like, somebody he collects. So there's always like everybody's looking out for each other there.
Yeah. That's the best part of the community, because everybody knows what everybody's looking for. And, you know, I know what Sammy likes, you know, with his Mathewson collection and Willie Mays and some of the rarer stuff he's getting into now.
Jake
you know,
from Legends Never Die, that at the first one in Atlantic City, he stumbled on this. It was a complete like original Redman package from the 1950s Redman.
He still has it. He still
Yeah,
has
and he came up to me and he's like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm like, if you don't buy it, I am. And he's like, that's all I had to know, and he ran over and bought it because he wasn't sure if it was a good price or not. But as Orlando and I spoke of last time, it's hard to put a price on something like that. I thought it was a very low and reasonable price for what it was, but you just don't see them.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to go with your gut on stuff like that.
Which,
absolutely.
We talked about that last time about when it. I mean, we don't have to reiterate the conversation because we talked about it last time. But I remembered, this is one key thing, and I always think about this when I approach a table that has rare stuff that really doesn't have any comps or sales, probably, you know, in a 2 or 3, if not a 4 or 5 year span, is that if you find a dealer who's pricing something that you really like, you really want it, you have to kind of, as you mentioned, just go with your gut. You have to kind of think about how you would evaluate it. What do you value this item as? And I thought that's really good advice. Another good piece of advice that John, you gave me was I found that German baseball stamp of Christy Mathewson from 1910. And the dealer wanted said price for it, and I wasn't sure because, again, there weren't that many sales, but you gave good advice, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this, is that there's a stamp market and there's the card market, and the stamp market obviously doesn't really kind of hold the same weight because it's not technically a card, but it's still attached to baseball in some ways. So that's why the valuation is, you know, if that was a card, it would be worth $10,000, but instead it's a stamp and it's worth $1,000 or $2,000. So
yeah, right.
I found that to be interesting, and I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little bit, but that's
yeah. I mean, you pretty much hit it. Now, I am one of those collectors, and not everybody is, but I will collect stamps somewhat, and I like to collect like the Sweet Capital pins and the Tattoo Orbit pins, Cracker Jack pins, Mrs. Sherlock's pins from the 1924. And I've always collected the pins and the stamps. And one of the things that drew me to them originally when I was young is I could get them for way cheaper than the cards, and I couldn't afford the cards. So I might be able to get, you know, a 3-finger brown pin where I couldn't afford the card at the time. And they're great collectibles, and they were distributed many times in the same way. But, you know, card collectors, certain things just become more popular and therefore more expensive, right? More pricey because of the demand. You take oversized cards. For years, those things were super undervalued, whether it was the 1947 to 66 exhibits or any of the other exhibits, or the 1964 Giants, or the 70 or 71 Top Supers, you name it. If it was oversized, it just would always sell less. Now, in recent years, that's changed somewhat. They have come up a little bit, especially the 47 to 66 exhibits, which I've always found undervalued. You know, they're vintage. They have the great players on them, but you could. I remember when I picked up my Jackie Robinson and my Joe DiMaggio. I think I picked them up for like $7 or $8, you know, in like the early '90s. Like nobody wanted to collect those. Now they're way more. But you know, I feel the same way about stamps and pins.
Yeah, I did some legwork on that Mathewson stamp. I didn't end up buying it because I saw that schedule, the Durham Duplex Razor schedule, and I thought that was pretty cool looking, just the way it was set up and everything. It was a tough decision because they're both around the same price. They're both novelty items, and I might consider getting that German baseball stamp again at some point because I don't think it's sold yet. But you know, I think it was distributed in Germany. And I mean, it's kind of surprising to me because I didn't think baseball was widely as popular there, but I guess somebody
Right.
caught on that. But yeah, I mean, I mean, as you mentioned, you know, there's a lot of different paths you can take in terms of collectibles, and I think it's definitely true, and it's good advice, especially, you know, going to a show like the National, where you're going to probably kind of stumble upon a table that has stuff like that, and it's going to be very difficult to price, but you can kind of keep that in your back pocket, saying, like, knowing, all right, this is not going to price nearly as high as like a Pinkerton Mathewson, obviously, but
Yeah, it's not going to be anywhere near that. But you know, one of the things I do just to add to that is I kind of put in my mind, if this was a card, what would it sell for? And you can get some sort of an idea of, okay, well, I would be willing to pay this because I know if it was a card, it would sell for this much. But the stamps, man, some of those stamps are way more rare than the cards.
Yeah.
And you know, you might not see another one of those.
which is why I'm very tempted to jump back into that. But Orlando, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely, you know, those stamps and those, I guess I'll call them oddball just because of Rick, you know, but those odd size collectibles, you know, like that schedule that you got, that's very rare. And I think, you know, that schedule is going to be, I think, probably tougher to find than the stamp, even though the stamp is tough enough. But you know, really, when you look at some of the odd size things like that people didn't collect, and now's when they're becoming very popular. And you know, there's stuff that still is very, very affordable. For example, and I know John talked about this before, the Kogan chips. I mean, you can get a Ty Cobb Kogan chips, compared the price of that to the Ty Cobb T206 from the same. It's from the same year, you know, and how can you afford, let's say, a Honus Wagner? You can afford the Kogan chips. It's still, now it's expensive, but if you would have bought that 5-10 years ago, those cards were so inexpensive. And you know, John talked about the exhibit cards. The exhibit cards, you can go and get those cards for $5, $6, anywhere at any show, stacks of them, you know, and people just kind of ignored them, didn't really go after them. And I think now the hobby is kind of leaning towards stuff that's a little bit tougher to find, a little more oddball stuff. And I think that's kind of the direction. I think the last few years, the hobby's gearing towards that direction. I think it's going to continue more in that direction now that people are realizing that those type of things, you know, they're period era playing days pieces that are very limited, much more limited than the cards themselves, but much less, you know, much less price, more affordable.
Right.
So I think that, yeah, in the last few years, those type of items have really taken off, and I still think they have a ways to go. I think that, I mean, I'm not giving investment advice, but if I were to look for, you know, a good alternative to a Ty Cobb or a Walter Johnson or Honus Wagner, I'm looking at those Kogan chips. I'm looking at some of those odd size pieces.
I have a feeling John is bringing some stuff to show.
I am, but I just wanted to add to that. You know, I don't collect things just because they're rare.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be something that you know, speaks to me. I want it, fits into my collection, and that's how that stamp is for you, because it's Christy Mathewson. Yeah. You know, that fits into your collection. It's not probably for everyone, and that's why it's not going to sell as a rare Christy Mathewson card. But times change. I use the example of the Sanella margarine Babe Ruth all the time. You couldn't give those away at one time. You couldn't give them away, and now they sell for thousands, even in lower grade. So things in the hobby, change over time. Like we always say, at one time it was taboo to have an autographed card, to have a card autographed, and now they go for more money. So that's why it's always best to collect what you like, what speaks to you, what you want to have in your collection, because you don't know what's going to happen 5-10 years down the road. And a lot of these cards I bought, and I'm sure Orlando too, that were, we got them because they were overseas issues and they were more affordable. And now, after PSA came out with pop reports and so forth, people didn't realize how rare these things were. And now they're worth way more and more in demand. But I think back to Orlando's point is, like for me, collecting all my life and having near sets of just about everything, you get to a point where, okay, you've run out of those cards. So now you need to move on and find the other ones. Like once you get the Clemente base run, then what? Then you graduate to those other cards. So a lot of the newer collectors are going to go after those big dream cards first, right? They might want the Hank Aaron rookie. They want a 56 mantle. Well, once they satisfy that need, then they go looking for kind of what Orlando and I are talking about.
Exactly.
But I just wanted to show, I did have some of these Colgans here real quick before you go on to the next question. But this is the tin they came in.
Oh,
there were two different tins, two different types of gum. They were round gum. That was their thing. The only round gum. That was their slogan. Here's two of the Ty Cobbs. I have two of them, actually. And I got this one reslabbed at the this was in a PSA holder, and it was one of those ones where it would flop up and down because, PSA holders suck. So I had it reslabbed. And it looks beautiful there. And here's the Honus Wagner Orlando was talking about.
Wow.
And I love this one because it's the same image
Right.
as the T206. And I actually bought these together years and years and years ago. The guy had the tin that it came in.
It's really cool.
I think there's also a green tin.
Yes, there is. And Rick just picked up, he just picked up 2 green tins and one of this tin, and the chip is still in the tin.
Oh, nice.
And he promised me the second green one, so I'd have them both.
So
looking forward to that.
Do you? I wanted to also ask because, I've been going to over the span of like the 3 or 4 years that I've gotten since I've gotten back into the hobby. Even to this day, when I go to a show, to a table, to a card, to like a dealer that has a lot of stuff that I really like, there is that I still get nervous about having to negotiate and having to try to work out a deal because I'm nervous about messing up the opportunity. And I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about some, I don't know, just some thoughts on how to kind of squash those nerves, or to kind of make the situation or the scenario a lot easier to approach.
Well, whoever you're approaching wants to sell that card, so you're not going to offend them so much they're not going to sell it to you. So, what could go wrong? You're going to make an offer. If he says, go pound sand, no, I have to be here, or he'll come down. You're still going to have the opportunity. Maybe, it's more of an ego thing, really. If you go in there and you're trying to go too low and he won't budge or whatever, and then you just walk away because you don't want to put your tail between your legs and move back up in value, right, or in price. Never be afraid to make an offer.
What about you, Orlando?
Well, yeah, I agree completely with John. The only other thing that I guess I can add to that is what I like to do is, I like to, from being on the dealer side, I like when people come up and talk a little bit, and maybe share some interest. So what I do is I'll talk a little bit to the dealer and, just just chit chat a little bit first while I'm looking at his case. And, if I see a card that I like, then I will, ask them a little bit about it, when they, how they got it, or stuff that what they know about the card. A lot of times they'll say, oh, I got it from a guy that pulled it from the pack, or I got it from this guy that was in his Pelican case, and, that kind of stuff. So I like to just chit chat a little bit and find out, because that kind of gives me a little bit of an idea. If he's had the card for a long time, then he may be more anxious to sell it than he maybe if he just traded it or just got it at that show, then he might be a little hesitant. So I try to just kind of feel it a little bit, and then I'll just ask him, if he has any room on the card first. That's kind of what I'll ask first, and then they'll say yes or no, and I can work with you or whatever. And if it's a dealer, I'll make an offer, but I really would like to see what he's gonna do first, because I don't really want to insult him with a too low an offer. But I want the card cheap, So it's a double thing. So it all depends. And what I do a lot of times, if it's a dealer that I've bought from in the past, I will ask them, what's the best you can do on that card? And I'll just look at them in the eye and tell them, what's the best you can do? And a lot of times they'll tell me the best price that they will come down to. But the problem with that is once they go to that price, you can't negotiate down anymore. That will definitely insult them, because they just told you what the best price they would do.
Right.
So you can't, that's the point, that you can't negotiate anymore.
I wanted to touch on something you said, Orlando, about talking. Talking.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for building rapport. And I know from when I used to sell off my doubles, somebody would give me a sob story, or they'd be like, "Oh man, I always dreamt about having this card, and I can never afford it. And can you take this?" And I'm kind of a sucker for that, and I did give people deals when I kind of felt like they were genuine about those kinds of stories, because they were my doubles, and I wasn't selling them to get rich or anything. I was just selling them to support my hobby, and I wanted them to go to good homes. I didn't want them to go to somebody who was just going to try to get me down and flip them, which may have happened. How would I know? But there is something to be said for that. I think a dealer, many of the dealers would want, more apt to lower it maybe if, they think you're really going to appreciate it, or you have a good story or reason for wanting it.
If it's going to go to a collector that's going to keep it, they come to me and they're telling me that they're a Clemente collector, then, I want to give them a break, because I know they're going to buy a card they're going to keep for a long time, so I express what I collect also to the dealer, so they know, that I'm a collector. I'm not going to be moving the card, buying it from him and selling it to the other dealer in the other table,
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you stumble on somebody that might be from close to where you live and you weren't familiar with them, you live there, they might be interested. You could buy more stuff from them. You could go visit their shop, and they might be more apt to do that as well. Like, I'm going to come. I got to come check out your store, because I just think when you engage and you build that rapport. I mean, there's something to be said for that. I think
that tends to be the case with me, is that I'll be a repeated customer with a dealer that I've purchased from before, and it's definitely true. I mean, a lot of trying to see, like, if I look up some of the Mathewson stuff that I've picked up are from the same dealer, and it definitely, it certainly does help in that scenario.
I mean, I just want to say, like, I've had the opposite too, where people would be like almost rude, or you shouldn't be asking that, or oh, it's not worth it, or I'm only going to give you. I wouldn't sell it to them if they offered me twice as much money. Just because they're being rude.
I tell you, Sammy, you do a great job, because I had a friend of mine that comes down to South Florida every once in a while, New York Lou.
Yeah.
And New York Lou bought stuff from you, and he says, man, every time Sammy sets up, I've got to look at his stuff, and I feel like I got to buy something from him. So that's how you earn customers that way, because he says, Sammy gave me such good deals that, I got to go back.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think on the as an amateur dealer, because again, I do it to kind of refuel my hobby dollar, but yeah, when I'm there, I'm just setting up at some of the smaller shows and the interactions, you can kind of just tell immediately, um, what what it will potentially translate to, and so. Yeah, with Lou, it was he bought the '61 Fleer Bob Cousy off of me, and
Nice card.
yeah, I mean it's kind of funny because I had two of them, and I had one that was an SGC3, and I sold him the one that was a PSA 5, and in my mind I'm thinking like I sold him the one that was I thought like the one that I sold him was had better centering, but I didn't realize it was like significantly better centered, and so
Oh,
the one that I have is really really off
yeah,
center, but I don't, Bob Cousy's not my guy, so I'm not really, I'm not
yeah.
like, oh, I missed out. I shouldn't have sold it.
Nah,
Actually, that's something I never. That's a good question to ask you guys. And you've probably been asked this 100 times.
l-
Yeah,
beautiful card. Look, see,
yeah.
that's a beautifully centered one
Let
too.
me
Wow,
see if I
those
can.
are
And
so
and
tough
the
to get
inaction
centered.
too.
Oh, nice.
That's
Yeah,
Show
really
the
this
nice.
other
is the
one
one you
again,
were
Jim.
talking about. Too.
Yeah.
That's a. If Dylan collected basketball cards, that'd be a Dylan card.
Yeah.
These are great. These are great cards. These Fleer
Yeah.
basketball.
I have the. I can't really. You can sort of see it, but the Bill Russell. You know what? Let me open up the case because this one is really it's an incredible card, and it probably would have gotten like a 7 or an 8 if it didn't have this really bad crease going across.
Oh,
Uh,
beautifully
yeah,
centered.
let me
You
see if
can't
I.
even see the crease
No, I'm
from
gonna
here.
solo it just so we can you can sort of see it now if you right about
Uh,
there, and it goes across the name.
you can barely see it though.
I
It's
know.
beautifully centered.
I'll take
Nice
that
card.
all day.
Beautifully centered. Yes.
But
Mine is not as well centered, but I was thrilled to get it because there aren't too many Bill Russells. However, the inaction I have is fabulous, and I
Oh, that's a
love this
beauty.
card. He has his Converse, his old fashioned Converse high tops.
Yeah.
it's really cool. Yeah, it's incredible. Oh, I totally forgot I was gonna. Yeah, you know what? I mean,
I have the
yeah.
Chamberlain in action, and it says Will dunks a 2-pointer.
Yeah, I love the Oscar Robertson in action is fantastic. I have a real nice example of that one.
Yeah.
It's a great set. I at one point had the entire Celtics run, but I've since sold. I think I sold a couple of those Celtics cards. I think I still have. I think I sold like one of like the Casey Jones or something like that. But so I know
This
you
is
guys.
a
Yeah, go ahead.
this is a good example of the way I collect. Is when I was shopping for this card, and I can say this about every card I've ever shopped for, pretty much. It's like I had choices, and there are sometimes you have them better centered, maybe higher grade or whatever. But for some reason, it's like a feng shui thing. Sometimes a card just speaks to me, and regardless of any minor flaws it might have, it's just the one that speaks to me, the one that I want. And this was one of those cards. Uh, and I have no explanation for why I chose this one over others, other than this one just spoke to me. But I have a lot of cards like that, and I'm pretty much a centering junkie. But every once in a while, an off-center card just appeals to me for some reason, and I grab it. This was one of them.
I have a question for you guys pertaining to your preferences in certain cards. I know, there's a million ways to collect. There's no right or wrong way. If you had a choice between a $2,000 card of like the same player, a rare and unique $2,000 card, or a rare and unique $500 card, the $2,000 card had a design that was very minimal, and the $500 card was a very elaborate and very well design looking card, would that have any sort of effect on your decision, or is your preference pertaining to a particular ways? Like, I know, John, you kind of like, I forget what it was. You have a way of, you wanted to collect a card from every set. That was something you were really focusing on. So maybe this sort of scenario doesn't play into that, but I don't know. I just thought I'd kind of bring something up to bring up that
Yeah,
scenario.
that's so kind of generic. I don't know how to answer it.
Well, you know what it is that
Without a specific example, but yeah, I'm not quite sure how to answer it.
I
Like
think
I said, the rarity isn't the only thing for me.
right.
For me, if it was a set I didn't have represented because of my goal, that would factor in a big way. The one that presented better would be probably the one I lean to, because I run into that
Right.
dilemma all the time. Like, I have so much money I want to spend, and I'll have this card from this set or this card from this set, and it's like I need them both. Maybe I need them both represented. I love them both, but at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the one that I'm probably not going to find again, or the one that presents nicer.
I think what I was, yeah, and it's perfectly valid points there.
I think, Sammy, were you talking about maybe two different cards? Let's say of a player, and one was more expensive, one was cheaper. And
well, you know what it is that I was kind of thinking more about the design aspect, because for me personally, when it comes to collecting like the Mathewson stuff, like the Pinkerton is a great card, but at the same time, I look at that card. I mean, there's a guy who's selling it at the Garfield show. This guy Harry, and he's selling it for like almost $4,000, and it's a great card, but there's other really more colorful, elaborate looking designs of Mathewson stuff out there that goes for a lot less. So for me personally, I'd rather spend $1,000 on a really good looking, elaborate, colorful design of a Mathewson card than spend $4,000 on a very black and white looking card.
Yeah, I would be in agreement with that, unless it was the like 1903 E107 or one of those sets. It's near impossible. That would be my only exception.
Yeah, I agree with John first. I think that's mainly, I think he made the point there. But I think for me, for example, when I'm looking at cards, I'm going to buy the one really that is more aesthetically pleasing, that the one that I like the best as far as looking at that card. I'll give you an example. For my 1800 set, I've decided I was going to get two players, major players, like, two of Cap Anson's and two of King Kelly's, but there's a few other cards. So when I looked at, let's say, Cap Anson cards, I wanted one that was a nice artwork, and that to me was the Goodwin Champion. And then my second decision was, do I want the Allen and Ginter, or do I want to get one with an actual photo of Cap Anson? And I felt I wanted to go with the photo versus another one of, because it's just an actual picture of him. So I got the Mayo card versus the Allen and Ginter card, which is to me a little similar to the Goodwin Champion, but just less colorful. So it didn't attract me that much. So the price, I didn't really, probably were similar. So I didn't really look at the price. I looked at the card that I really wanted, that I would fit in my collection with my, what I preferred. And that was what I preferred when I made that decision, pretty much.
And when I would pick between these two, the thing I probably wouldn't care about is future value, or even the value of that card. Like, I'd want to get the one that I want, unless there was a huge dispersion. I mean, if you're talking, 500 versus 5,000, and that's going to affect my decision. But if you're talking, 1,000 versus 1,300, that's not going to affect my decision. I'm going to go with the one that I like better, and I'm not gonna be looking at a future, what it might be worth in the future.
Yeah, you never know what it's going to be worth in the future. So
you never know.
I'm not even going to speculate. I want something
especially
that
with the vintage.
Yeah, I want something that I like. I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to look at every day and be happy with it.
Yeah, I think that's it's I created like I mean for me it's there's the list of cards that the list of items or collectibles that I put together for myself are really kind of elaborate, very colorful looking stuff to kind of really kind of as you mentioned kind of pop out at you when you see it in a display case or something like that. So like the Sporting
Some
Life,
cards just make you feel good when you look at them.
yeah.
You
So
know,
I
I
mean,
come in here and just look through cards, and you're having a bad day, you're stressed out, whatever.
Yeah.
it's
Makes you
like
feel better.
it's the
Is that
introduction.
that colorful bird prism that I see right up
Oh,
there?
the
That's pretty colorful.
yeah. So that one I found online and some history on it. I actually had to ask Adam from Splendid Sports Cards because he's the only other person that I know that has one. And he, when you try to search for those, there's really very little information on them.
Yep.
But from what I was able to gather about the Prism bird, is that not just the bird, but in 1985, supermarkets all on the West Coast had these vending machines, and the vending machines, you put quarters in them. I mean, you guys have probably seen them. Is you push the cartridge in, and it pops out with a piece of cardboard. Inside was the sticker. And so the Michael Jordan one is obviously the most valuable, but it's really interesting to me. And this kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier, is like everybody gravitates to that Fleer 86 or the Star 84 or 85, whichever one it is. And, people forget that there was the 1985 sticker of Michael Jordan is not an easy piece to find. And again, rarity is one thing, but an alternative option to owning something that is very exclusive from a great player. I mean, I went around the Philly show asking people if they had a 1985 Prism, and they kind of looked at me cockeyed like, "What? I've never seen that before."
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, very few people heard of those things. It's funny you brought up the Star. So, I was collecting at that time, and it's just funny and this is why we say you never know what the future is going to hold,
Right.
because you couldn't give those Star cards away. We all viewed them as fake cards. They had no legitimacy at the time when they were distributed. And now look at them. Jeff Wilson paid like $100,000 for the Jordan. And back then, man, nobody even wanted the cards. You could get them for $1.
Yeah.
It's amazing now. Those I think I
They're
remember.
so legitimized now. Yeah.
Yeah,
But at one
and
time, they weren't even considered. The same with the 1976 SSPC. They were produced in 75, but they were distributed in 76. And then because they were unlicensed, they were taken off the market. And those things have been reconsidered nowadays. But at one time, those were considered kind of fake cards too. But I have I have the whole set here, and I have a new appreciation for them. So that's what we're saying. Times change, things change.
Yeah. You never know what the future holds, and 10 years from now, that 85 Jordan or 84 Jordan may be the hot card, and the 87 Fleer may not be. You just don't know.
yeah,
I sure am kicking myself for not buying those Stars, or buying more Jordans, to be honest, because back then, even though it wasn't a lot of money, it was a lot of money for a card.
It's crazy because I had, as a dealer, somebody came up to me and sold me like 10 bags of those things back in the day. I didn't get the Bulls bag, but I had a bunch of other ones, and I sold for like $30. I remember selling the Utah Jazz with a Stockton rookie there for $50, the whole bag with the whole team set, because it was just.
I didn't even know
like
they
John
went
was
for that
saying,
much.
they were giving them away back then. I don't have any. I sold them all cheap.
Yeah, they made a lot of homemade cards, and those were just considered like homemade cards.
Yeah.
I know when Bo Jackson came out, Michael Jordan, Darryl Strawberry, those guys, Ken Griffey Jr., they were all kind of homemade cards. Everybody was making these homemade cards, and those cards were kind of considered to be the same at the time.
yeah. it's also possible. I mean, could you argue that PSA also had a little bit of involvement in star cards being kind of reinvigorated as for, like lately though, because now you could send them in for grading. I think Beckett was grading them, but then when PSA started grading them, they kind of had a resurgence.
There is no doubt the influencers had involvement in that. They would buy them up and then pump them up, and now they sell for a fortune.
Yeah, I know
And
you love that.
now there's the debate: is that the true rookie card now? Not the Fleer. That Fleer's not a rookie card. The Star's the rookie card. And you have that whole debate
Yeah.
going on. And if the Star cards are legitimate cards, it's hard to argue they're not the rookie cards, right? They came out first.
Right.
And I mean, they weren't sold in packs though, right, Orlando? They sold those like in bags.
They sold them in team bags, mostly at the stadiums. But you could get them anywhere. I mean, they were available at the shows all the time back in the day.
It's incredible.
Oh yeah, they were widely available, so it fits that bill. So it would be hard to argue that it's not the true rookie card if those cards are legitimized at this point. But that it would I don't think it would ever take away from the 86 Fleer. That's just an iconic card at this point. Yeah. Rookie card or no rookie card.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard.
The Fleer is always going to be the iconic card for Jordan.
Yeah, and it's so much better looking than the Star too.
I want to just jump just back into the National a little again, just to ask this question: is there anything that you're looking for right now that you think you'd want to wait for the National for? That maybe just it could be something that you feel you probably won't find until then, or is that just not even in your mind at all?
I would definitely not wait for the National to buy anything that if I had an opportunity to buy it now. No way.
I could have figured as much.
In fact, for me, I don't know. Like, I was just talking to somebody about this. In Atlantic City, the cards were seemed overpriced. Like nobody wanted the deal. I couldn't find a good deal. There wasn't internet. Nobody would give me a price without being able to look up damn comps. So I ended up spending like a tiny fraction of my budget. I came home and bought the rest on eBay. I went on a shopping spree because I didn't feel satisfied because I couldn't buy anything there. People wouldn't even give me a damn price. Now at Chicago, I felt like everybody was dealing. Everybody was wheeling and dealing. I got great deals on everything. Everybody was willing to move. So they were like night and day experiences for me from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, same here. Yeah. I'm just going to repeat what John says. It's just, it depends. It depends on the show. Listen, if I go to a show this weekend and I find the card that I had to have, there goes my budget. And it could be the budget for Strongsville. You never know. You never know what pops up and what you can get at a good price. So it's just a matter of you have.
Yeah, the thing is you're never going to take enough money to the National, right? You could never have enough money there.
Never.
If you have the opportunity to get it before then, be it, because you're going for the experience and meeting everybody, talking, hanging out with everybody else and so forth. But I do want to go back and just say that I was shocked that everybody was dealing in Chicago because the place was packed and there was no lack of buyers, that's for sure. So that was kind of surprising to me, but pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, and I've seen that lately. I think a lot of dealers are finally realizing that prices have come down and have become a little bit more flexible. And I think that also a lot of collectors have brought out some of their collection that they've had for many years. And some of those rarer stuff are beginning to come out also. But yeah, definitely, I'm going to be saving my money for Strongsville and for the National. I'm not really going on eBay looking for stuff on eBay. But you just never know what pops up. You just never know what you find. I mean, I'm still going through eBay, but I'm not buying anything.
Yeah.
But when opportunity knocks, you just got to open the door, though.
Yeah, I just want to share this. When I was in Atlantic City at that National, there was a corner table I remember, and they had all kind of cards that I would like. And somebody took me over. They're like, "Oh, you got to see this table," and I'm like, "Yeah, I already saw it." And I'm like, "That stuff's all way too high priced." And they're like, offer, make him an offer or something. I'm like, he's so overpriced. Like, I'm not even making an offer. Like, when you're that overpriced, it's not, you don't even feel comfortable making an offer,
right.
Because And then even though there was a whole table filled with crap I wanted, I just never went back. You
No,
know,
Atlantic City was
I just
high
discount
price.
those
It
kinds of
was,
tables.
yeah.
Do you, well, to kind of feed on that a little bit, do you feel as though it was a combination of the hobby at the time, or were there just completely different dealers?
Yeah, Atlantic City was still the hype from COVID still. So we
Yeah,
still had a lot of people all really excited to go to the national, and dealers thought that everybody was just going to go and have more
splurge.
money and throw everything at them. But
Yeah,
really, and some people did, but the smart collectors knew that things were way overpriced. And, I didn't buy a lot there either. I actually traded more than I did buying. But
Yeah, and
Chicago
I heard
was,
afterwards dealers complaining about their sales, and they were blaming it all on the fact that they couldn't look up comps and there was no internet service. And there may be obviously some truth to that, but I think also they need to look in the mirror and say we were way overpriced on this stuff too.
interesting. Yeah, it's because I mean, I guess generally a lot of the times the national, no matter where it is, it's a lot of the same dealers that are there, with maybe some more because being in a certain region will draw out some more people that may not go to Cleveland or Chicago, and this and vice versa may not go to New Jersey. So, um, but yeah, no, I mean it's going to be interesting to see this upcoming year what sort of to see how prices reflect going into the summer. But yeah, definitely looking forward to it. It'll be Strongsville will be the first time going. So is this your first one as well, Orlando, or have you been to it
I've
before?
never been to Strongsville, and the reason I'm going is because they say it's like 95% vintage, and everybody that I've talked to said that it's the best vintage show in the country.
I have a feeling I'm going to end up emptying my pockets.
When is that show?
April.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll go.
I asked because I was telling John I spoke with Brian Beroth, and he's considering on going as well because we don't live too far from each other, so he might catch a ride with me there. But yeah, no, I hear it's a good experience, and I hear they're moving it to like a little bit of a bigger space, and they're not using the hotel as their conference area because I guess it's expanding, so that's always a good sign.
So Orlando, are you flying or driving?
No, I've got to fly up there. That's too far for me.
Oh,
But
damn! I thought you could pick me up on the way.
What?
I thought you could come up 95 and pick me up on the way.
There's a bunch of guys that are going over there, John. You need to find out who's going. I'm going to be rooming with Rocket Rick.
Yeah, that's is that outside of Cleveland?
Yes, it is. There's a bunch of guys. I think some people from your area may be going too. So you got to look into that. I think there's about 15 YouTubers that are going.
From my area? Those are from my area.
You're in South Carolina?
Yeah. Maybe North Carolina.
Maybe North Carolina is what I'm thinking of. Somebody from North Carolina, yeah.
Are you for the national, John? I'm guessing you're flying as well. Or are you going to be catching a ride?
I'm planning a road trip, and
Nice.
yeah, I was going to reach out to some of the guys who live up in North Carolina, see if they want me to pick them up on the I like Jake. I might make multiple stops. I'm gonna turn it into a little personal little road trip for me. I'm from Pittsburgh. I might even swing over there because when I lived in Pittsburgh, I used to go to Cleveland a lot. It's 2.5 hours. It was 2.5 hours from where I lived, which was east of Pittsburgh. So it's even closer to Pittsburgh. But
that's good.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make a little road trip of it. Take a little vacation.
Very cool. Well, listen, guys. As always, appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down, chat. I'd be curious to see how this video will perform, but I kind of feel like this will definitely perform as well, if not better, than the one before. So, if you guys are cool with it going forward, I'd love to kind of continue this with another video in the future. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Anytime. I'm ready.
Well, I know Orlando's like me. I mean, sometimes you just can't get enough. cards, card top.
Yeah.
So you get into those modes where you just can't get enough of it, and then there's other times where you get, all right, let me take a little bit of a pause here for a minute. But right now I'm in that mode. I'm already ready to go to the National. I'm already.
No, you and me both.
I wish it was next week.
Yeah. Well, listen, again, I appreciate you guys taking the time. Obviously, everybody, I mean, people that are watching this are probably already subscribed to your channels, but if you're not, check them both out. They are some of the more premier collectors and more experienced, knowledgeable guys here in the hobby. So thank you very much for checking out the For Collectors channel. Please subscribe if you're new, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Sammy.
Thank you, Sammy.
See you,
Thanks,
Orlando.
John.